Thank you for joining our discussion, Jeff.
Thank you, Dan. Glad to be here.
Hurricane Helene followed an unexpected track into western North Carolina, doing significant damage to the Blue Ridge Mountains in areas that have not typically seen hurricanes. Can you share with us information about some of Helene's impacts on railroads operating in that area?
Yes, thank you, Dan. Let's get the screen up. Can you see it? Yes, this is the Nolichucky River in Tennessee. If you look to the left there, you can see what used to be a railroad roadbed, and you can see a piece of a bridge floating in the water right there. So pretty tough stuff. Before we do that, I thought I would give you just a little bit of perspective about railroad recovery after catastrophic events in the past that might be of interest just to kind of set the tone. So we all remember Hurricane Katrina, and many of us might remember that the Norfolk Southern had a bridge across the Lake Pontchartrain. It's 5.8 miles long. It's basically a concrete deck with the track laid on top of it, and the hurricane basically cleared everything off. Rails, ties, ballast, everything disappeared. So Norfolk Southern hired a couple of barges to lift the track out of the water and set it back up there. Obviously, the track was distressed by the experience, so now the crews are replacing some of the ties and so forth, but they got it back in 16 days. Pretty impressive stuff. And then of interest to people out west, there was a catastrophic fire right just north of downtown Sacramento underneath a wooden trestle, a major double track route, and we call it the I-5 corridor. It goes basically from Seattle to San Diego, if you will. And that was 1,400 foot of bridge that was burned away. And, it was on March 15th, and they got the first track back in service April 1. Pretty amazing stuff. You can see in the lower image there a bit of the new bridge being installed there. So pretty interesting stuff. And then here's just a wild example of something a little unusual. There was a horrific ice storm in Quebec back in 1998, and huge power lines dropped everywhere. So CN, one of our Canadian railroads, worked with the local community to bring a locomotive in on the track. You can see there. They intentionally derailed it, spun it perpendicular, and had it roll in its own wheels several blocks down the street and hooked it up to a substation to provide emergency power for a hospital and some other things. So, it shows the kind of innovative thinking that goes on in our industry. So here's just a quick recap of the experience of that storm. You can imagine 10 to 12 to 20 inches of rain in one, swoop there. You can see the magenta and see up here on the scale. There's pretty awful stuff here. It was a 2-day affair. So we'll start with one of the two railroads that was badly affected. This is Norfolk Southern's line here. You can see that, various parts were restored. We'll see a picture of a bridge in a moment. It's pretty much back in service now, but it's only been a couple of weeks. So it's been a multi-month activity. Not only the track was damaged, but you can imagine signals, wires, various appointments, power switches and everything. So let's take a quick look at Norfolk Southern's network. So if you look down here, you can see Charlotte. So I'll just refer to it again. There's Charlotte right there. So it's this track right here that was impacted. The reason I'm going into this is just to show people how, this is an individual railroad. There's other railroads in the area too. We'll look at CSX in a moment. But because we're a network, while the area immediately affected by the storm obviously lost rail service, it wasn't like everybody on either side did. There's ways to work around it, as you can see here with all these other tracks. So here's an image of one of the bridges here. There was a stone pier right here that held it up. It was washed away, and so the bridge collapsed. And then here's a picture of it right here. One of the trusses survived, so it was kept. So the pier that failed was right about here, but they had this back in service. Well, let's see. Well, let me back up. There was 21,000 feet of track that was washed away, 50,000 feet of track that was severely damaged, et cetera, et cetera. And they had that bridge back in service with the first train going through April 8th. So it's just happened happily. Now we'll take a look at CSX. It's sort of in the same general area right here. Charlotte would be over here somewhere. I just want to point out the town of Irwin because we'll see that on their network map right here. I just highlight it right there. So once again, this track was damaged, but once again, there's workarounds there. I guess what's interesting though is, this happened back last fall, But at the beginning of this year, CSX voluntarily shut down another portion of their line right here in Baltimore for a major upgrade to a tunnel that's right there. So they actually have two pieces of their route that are out of service right now. And so they're doing a runaround. It doesn't, well, I'll show it in the next map. It's a little easier. Here they're using Norfolk Southern, by agreement to run their trains around the Baltimore tunnel, which is closed. And so they can continue to provide service, even though that's going on right there. And then here's just the image of the tunnel. It's right in downtown. This tunnel was built in the late 1800s. This is a modern portal right here, but the tunnel itself is brick and been there forever. And you can see here they're pulling the track out of there. They're going to drop the floor about 2 feet. And later this year, they'll be able to run double stack trains. So I'll just back up for a moment. That's going to allow double stack trains from New England down to Atlanta and down to Florida. So, truckers are friends of ours, they're major customers, but I suspect I-95 might have a little bit less traffic here before the year is out. So here's some pictures of the CSX route here. You can see here's the rails. You can see here's where the roadbed was. It's basically obliterated. Here's another one that shows a washout where everything was undermined, that the rails are just hanging there. And then here's another picture of that same bridge we saw earlier, just to give you kind of a sense of what it looks like up close. And then this is the latest they have. It's probably a little bit out of date, but nonetheless, this is the latest data I could find right here. So, once again, components of that route are already back in service, but full operation will be in the fall, probably not too much before that tunnel is back in service. So it's going to be a happy Christmas on that railroad. So that's about it. Happy to answer questions if there are any, or, there's a quick sketch of recovery after Hurricane Helene.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge about Hurricane Helene's impact on railroads.